Tonight, from the skies to the salaries, the real-world impact of the government's shutdown is starting to show as Donald Trump raises the stakes by threatening paychecks.
I would say it depends on who we're talking about.
Plus, the Attorney General, who's been under fire from the left and the right, takes a field trip to Congress.
How dare you? I'm a career prosecutor.
I think it is possibly a new low.
Does chaos trump oversight in this new era? Also, on the 2-year anniversary of the Hamas attack, New York's frontrunner attacks Israel and calls the U.S. complicit in a genocide. And as troops touch down on the streets of Chicago, the feds clap back to a country star's diss track against ICE.
Baptize me in a bottle of bean.
Live at the table, Bakari Sellers, Peter Meijer, Ana Navarro, and Hal Lambert. Americans with different perspectives aren't talking to each other, but here they do. Good evening, I'm Abby Phillip in New York. For 1 week, there's been absolutely no urgency in Washington to reopen the government. No talks, no progress, the House is not even in session. But now they may be starting to feel the heat. Delays are spreading at America's biggest airports, from Nashville to Vegas to Newark, New Jersey. Air traffic controllers are calling out sick because they're not getting paid. And the FAA warns that there aren't enough of them. In fact, a pilot who's trying to land at Burbank Airport learned of his unmanned tower during his descent.
Just getting a headset on. You said everything's closed for our clearances?
The clearance is closed, ground's closed, local's closed. The tower is closed due to staffing. So you just contact SoCal on the 800 number in the green book for your clearance.
All right.
The shortages are coming as the White House appears to be backing off the president's threat of mass firings. But that isn't stopping him from threatening the back pay of thousands of those furloughed workers.
The House's position that furloughed workers should be paid for their back pay?
I would say it depends on who we're talking about. I can tell you this, the Democrats have put a lot of people in great risk and jeopardy, but it really depends on who you're talking about. But for the most part, we're going to take care of our people. There are some people that really don't deserve to be taken care of, and we'll take care of them in a different way.
Now, if that wasn't clear, one official says that there is a draft of a White House memo suggesting that furloughed workers don't need to be paid for not working. Now, that is a sudden change, and it may not even be legal. Just before the shutdown, the White House's own frequently asked questions page on their website clearly said that the law ensures back pay. And now that section has suddenly disappeared. That page was edited on October 3rd, and any mention of that law is now gone. I don't know if they'll be able to legally do this. And by the way, we should note, this is a law that was passed in 2019 when Donald Trump was president. And Peter, by the way, welcome to the show. This is your first time joining us here. But new reporting from CNN tonight that I think is important here. This is what a source in the White House says. There's an increasing acknowledgement within the West Wing that the politics of reductions in force at a moment when we know our message on the shutdown is the better one would be better later. Said one official. It's the idea that if we give it more time, it'll be because Democrats truly forced our hand and left us no choice. And we don't want to appear gleeful about people losing their jobs. Is Trump appearing gleeful and also perhaps vindictive in this moment?
No, I don't think there's any glee, there's any vindictiveness. I will say, Russell Vought, he's Russell the professional. This is not a guy you want to mess around with. You know, there are certainly folks in the orbit that are just in it for the TV appearances. That is not Russ Vought. And so the idea that he can go out and start to do what Doge didn't, I think is incredibly tempting. And the longer Senate Democrats refuse to come back to the table, the longer they want to keep this shutdown going because they think maybe at some point their weird healthcare messaging is going to get over the mimetic power of the sombrero. I don't see it happening.
That was First of all, it was fun. It was decently illogical. I mean, Russ Vought, for people who are watching, is an unelected bureaucrat. Nobody came up here to elect him. Nobody cast a ballot.
Elected bureaucrats,
I'm going to finish my thoughts as well. So he's an unelected bureaucrat who's going around allegedly finishing the job that Elon Musk wasn't able to do, which I think most viewers have a great deal of heartburn about, if not even find laughable. That's first. But second, it's not some magical healthcare initiative that's going to rain like manna from heaven above. The fact is, we know that 15 million people are going to be kicked off of healthcare. We know that rural hospitals are shutting down. We also know. Wait, we're going to finish sentences. We also know that in a couple of weeks, we're going to see premiums not only double but triple in some circumstances. That's not something that we can push out. That's going to happen November 1st. If you are a middle-class family making $85,000 a year, your premiums are going to skyrocket to about $25,000 a year on Republican watch. And so when we're talking about ACA subsidies, when we're talking about Medicaid, this is not just some fictitious issue so Russell Vought can go around and act like he's the grand wizard. No, this is making sure that people have access to quality health care, period.
So Obamacare is not working, it sounds like.
No.
I mean, because this is what we're talking about.
How much of that premium increase is because of the expiration of the temporary, couldn't even get Democrats to make this permanent, temporary
Actually,
tax
there's a
credits
conversation right now to do it.
$40.
It's actually right now, it's about year to year. And I wish both of you all would just take the advice of the great Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene, because she's the one who's actually making the most sense. Look at the camera. We know what we can do right now. If we want the shutdown to stop, and this is what Democrats have been saying, if we want the shutdown to end, come to the negotiating table. Let's bring back the ACA subsidies, and let's make sure people don't lose health care.
Let me read what Marjorie Taylor Greene, just for people who don't know what he's talking about. Marjorie Taylor Greene wrote this. I'm going to go against everyone on this issue because when the tax credits expire this year, my own adult children's insurance premiums for 2026 are going to double, along with all the wonderful families and hardworking people in my district. She continues, not a single Republican in leadership talked to us about this or has given us a plan to help Americans deal with their health insurance premiums doubling.
And I said this the last time. Everybody who is on, the exchange, even those of us who do not receive subsidies, received a notice from the insurance company saying, because of government changes, your premiums are likely to go up. So check what's going to happen. And so I think there's a lot of people with a lot of angst. And I just look at the tone deafness of Donald Trump is in his Saddam Hussein gold-gilded Oval Office saying, yeah, we're not going to pay them. We're going to furlough them and not going to pay them, when there's so many people in America who live paycheck to paycheck, who work for the federal government, and even that isn't enough to pay for their bills.
At the end of the day, I mean, this day of the shutdown was different from the others because it was like doubling down on pain for Americans. And I just wonder how, in terms of the optics, which is what Anna's talking about, you have the president saying, oh, we may not pay, the janitors, these relatively low-wage people, and even some higher-wage people who work in the federal government.
In fact, that's his modus operandi. Anybody who's worked for him in construction will tell you that. And then on top of that is the underlying health care issue, which we know, according to the polling, Americans want to be addressed. They want those subsidies to be continued.
Okay, well, we have basically three different topics going at the same time. But if we want to talk about the healthcare side,
unfortunately, that's the sad part about this shutdown. It's a bunch of different issues all at once, and people in Congress are elected to deal with them. So
I'll just say this. So let's talk about the Medicare and the Medicaid and the insurance costs, right? The reason this is happening, they have not said they're not going to keep the subsidies going. That can be happening in November. That's a separate issue from the shutdown. The shutdown has to do with the fact that they changed they tweaked the language because California and other states, there are 5 other states that are giving undocumented illegal immigrants health insurance and health care.
The formula is not tweaked. Just to be clear, Hal, the formula is not tweaked for those states. Hold on. This is super important. The formula that you're talking about that changes the reimbursement is not targeted at those states. It applies across the board.
I get that.
And so hospitals, no matter whether you're in a red state or a blue state, whether you provide health insurance to immigrants or not, you are affected by the change in the formula.
And that law was signed in 1986 by Ronald Reagan.
California was using a loophole in the law to provide massive amounts of federal dollars to illegals.
That may be the case, but just to be clear, the change that was made by this Republican Congress applies to all states. So California might be disproportionately affected, but other states are affected too. And some of those states are red states, some of those states are blue states.
Well, but the problem is that they're using Medicaid for illegals, and they're denying that they're doing it.
Do you have any argument? Do you have any argument that doesn't have like illegal in it? So let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this question. A family, good old white bread American family making $85,000, middle class, their premium's going up to $25,000. That make an argument about why we should not bring back ACA subsidies that does not utilize the word illegal.
I would like to fix the entire healthcare system. This healthcare system's broken. What you're talking about is just pumping more federal dollars into it. That's really what we're talking about here. And the system is broken, and it's broken because the government has taken it over.
The system is broken, but I don't understand why, Hal, you want to deal with the Medicaid issue, but not the premium issue. They're all part of this.
But the premium's not part of the shutdown. The premium's not the issue with the shutdown.
Look,
we're making
the premium issue, just like the subsidy issue, are the two things that Democrats have put on the table. Now, I'm not saying that it's right that they put it on the table. I'm not saying that it's right that the government is shut down. I'm just saying that if those are the issues that they've put on the table that they want to negotiate on, both of them are on the table. One of them, frankly, I think is being completely misrepresented, including by you here in terms of the Medicaid subsidies. But the other one, there's clear public support for continuing those subsidies. And my question on Republicans is, are they going to be able to continue to pretend like that issue is not there for Americans? Because Americans know it's there. They want it to be addressed. And it sounds like in the White House, they're getting concerned that they're losing the messaging war on this.
No, there's clear public support to make health care affordable.
100%.
And the failure of the Affordable Care Act, we can call it the ACA to avoid the A word that's in there, but the reality is the subsidies were put in.
I call it Obamacare. I give it the real name that it deserves. The person who actually tried to fix our broken health care system.
Fair enough.
That's given millions of people access to quality care.
That has given that family you were talking about earlier now $25,000.
No, that's why we
premiums.
let me ask you this question. Who repealed the subsidies? What bill?
Which subsidy? Are you talking about the current subsidies that are going to expire?
Yes.
These were temporary subsidies.
Who repealed them? Who did not extend them?
Subsidies.
Who did it?
They just weren't made permanent. They just weren't made permanent.
And the Biden budget that, by the way, a bunch of Democrats supported. And you talk about Democrats coming back to the table in this case. Democrats don't need to come back to the table. They need to pass the budget they've passed 4 times in the past. Right? That is why the government is shutting down. Right? So they're using this leverage. Right? So the Democrats shut down the government. They hope to use this to try to extend these subsidies, to try to expand other elements. Sure, fair, fine. But let's talk about this for what it is. Republicans voted against this budget under Biden, and I get why Democrats are now doing it under Trump, but don't call this a Trump shutdown. It's Schumer shutdown.
Well, listen, okay, calling it Schumer showdown is, the talking point du jour, and talking about how this is all about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and all of that. I don't buy that. Because if I think Schumer was doing this because he was scared of his left...
He voted against it. He voted for it in the spring.
Fine. If Schumer was so afraid of his left flank, he would have endorsed Mondami and he would have been out there and campaigning for him, because that's what's happening now.
You're assuming he's smart on these things.
No,
he's definitely shrewd.
He's definitely smart on this thing.
But also, like, you forget, your timeline is off. And that's why the argument falls flat. Because you keep saying, you just voted for this in the spring. And now, what happened between then and now? You passed the one big, beautiful bill. So what happens was millions of people got kicked off of Medicaid. That means federal health centers are shutting down. Exactly. We've already had 3. We actually have one in South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina. The Eau Claire Health Center is actually shut down 6 locations where people go and have access to care. So your argument is wrong because your timeline is flawed. What happened was, in the spring, we passed the CR. You passed the big, beautiful bill. That was trash. Everything that you broke in it, we're trying to fix it now.
All right, we got to leave it there for that. Next for us, a different